Thank you so much, Kai, and a very good evening, everybody. And welcome if you're visiting. Welcome to Los Angeles. If you're from here, congratulations. And if you're not lucky enough to be from or living in Los Angeles, we hope that everybody who's visiting will really think of Los Angeles as your second home. So we're so excited to have you here, and I want to thank everybody who's made this gathering possible. Starting with Kai, I want to thank him for gathering together really something we were talking a little bit backstage. Los Angeles, which is such a great global city, a place that I'm, a fourth-generation native of, a place where you literally can step off a plane never having visited here from anywhere in the world, and within 15, 20 minutes be someplace that feels and sounds and tastes and smells familiar. Or you can be a fourth-generation native of here like myself and go 15 minutes in a new direction and see something you've never seen before. That kind of paradox of a place is really a remarkable city, but it's never really had a signature gathering. We go to other places. We go to Sundance. We go to South by Southwest. We go to TED. We go to Davos. We go to these places to think about the future, when in some ways the future is so omnipresent here in Los Angeles, we've forgotten to sometimes put those pieces together. So as mayor, I've only been mayor for about 6.5 months here in Los Angeles. I'm so excited to see this gathering and to kind of feel it, to see its promise and its potential, and I hope that this seed that is being planted will really flower into something wonderful in business and economic terms, in social and disruptive terms, but also in cultural and human terms. It was Aristotle who said about cities, he said, the city came into being to preserve life, but it exists for the good life. In other words, we all came to cities throughout history in order to be safe, but that was not the end goal. The end goal was to actually define and to find what the good life means to each one of us. Holding someone's hand, staring in their eyes and falling in love, seeing a movie or a play or listening to a song that stirs something we've never felt before, that getting lost in a great city is probably the best experience you can have. And it is that which we seek to have here in Los Angeles, which in my humble opinion is the greatest platform we've ever put together on the face of the earth. A place where now 220 plus languages are spoken, by any measure the most diverse collection of human beings in one single metropolis ever. A place where 150 plus countries of origin are here. A place where 37 countries find their largest population outside their home country here. And in some cases, the second biggest population of people of that descent, period. For instance, for Mexicans, it's Mexico City's #1, LA's #2, back to Mexico for #3. And it's only in a place like this where somebody who has an Italian last name who's half Mexican and half Jewish could be elected mayor. If I couldn't get elected with that, I don't know who could have. But the movers, the shakers that are in this room reflect really the spirit of this town. And I want to thank everybody who is in LA who does business here, and invite all of you that are looking at Los Angeles to really be a part of this marvelous current that is stirring underneath us at this moment. Earlier today, I was announcing some good news that the United States track and field marathon trials that we competed for were coming to Los Angeles. And we stood in front of the Coliseum, a place that's the only stadium that's had 2 Olympics, might even have a third if we have our way for 2024, but a place in which world records have been set, a place in which great athletes have come, a place in which the human soul has been stirred. And when you go through Los Angeles and you think of LA as a new town, right? That's our reputation. We're actually older than Washington, D.C. We were founded the same year the Continental Congress was commissioning a study to see whether marshland next to the Potomac River would be a fitting capital for this country. We're as old as many European and Asian cities, in a place that has always been founded on this diversity that we find here. The first settlers, known as pobladores in Spanish, were folks who could trace their ancestry to Asia, to the Americas, to Africa, and to Europe. The first kind of modern pueblo or city founded with that sort of diversity that's mirrored here today. So we're gathered here at a very critical moment for the startup universe as well. For us to position ourselves at the vanguard of the new economy is something that's a priority for me as a mayor, and one that I invite you into here. Now, LA has always been a great place to tell a story. We attract the world's best story makers and storytellers. It defines who we are. That's what Hollywood is. If we were all cavemen and cavewomen, we'd be talking around a fire right now, watching the shadows dance off the walls of the cave, but instead we put it into different media. We put it online, we put it in digital film, we put it on television, we stream it, we consume it, we listen to it. But the stories are still pretty universal, which is why I think the attention increasingly is here in Los Angeles. I'll tell you a quick story of a friend from LA who's very involved in Silicon Valley as well, who's on a panel in New York for, I think, Huffington Post with a high-ranking executive from Facebook, from somebody else who was from the Huffington Post and himself. And the Facebook executive was talking about just what a disruptor Facebook has been and how successful it's been, how it's changed the world. And he said when it came to his time to speak, he said, I'm blown away with what Facebook is and what it has become. But I want to make a point. I was at Paramount Pictures just a couple weeks ago, and this is a company that's been making the same product for 100 years. Even as the medium has changed, it is actually a profitable company that has told story after story, inspired person after person for a century. And we hope that Facebook's around, but you're the third incarnation this decade of changing the medium of how we connect with each other. And while the technology will inevitably change, the human impulse to connect, to express, to feel, won't. And here in LA, we know how to do that better than any place on the face of the earth. And I think so for this moment in history, the question is not whether we will change the way we do business, but rather who will lead and who will connect. And now is the time to determine if we are at the forefront, or if we are to follow. The change that is happening is undeniable. You know this better than me. Crowdfunding has fundamentally changed the way that we think about raising capital. Los Angeles was recently ranked as the third most friendly startup center in the world, Silicon Valley being first, of course, Tel Aviv second, and LA now third. We have more than 2,200 startups in this system, in this city, and growing. A new digital startup in this town is starting every 40 hours. And our entrepreneurial class, which is the highest ratio of residents to entrepreneurs in the country, more than 1 out of every 200 of my residents are entrepreneurs, is something that is really fueling this. But let's be clear, this is no accident. LA has an incredibly diverse, nearly $1 trillion economy, an even more diverse population that I mentioned. You know, on a day like this, I don't know if anybody's come from the snow, but somebody was saying, is LA on the decline? Do you feel like we're not going to be able to move forward? And I said, no, I'm not mayor of a place that's 10 below zero today. I'm not mayor of a landlocked city. I'm not mayor of a place that doesn't have a diverse or hard-working population. I'm not a mayor that doesn't have a great port or airport. I'm the mayor of Los Angeles, a place where it's 80 degrees today, a place where we have the #1 airport in the world in terms of flights that originate and end there, the #1 port in America where 43% of the goods that come into this country come through, a place that even if there weren't a city and you put a pin on the globe at the most diverse intersection of the global economic forces, you'd have to put a pin right here, the western capital of the United States, the eastern capital of the Pacific Rim, and the northern capital of Latin America. These ingredients together with the largest municipal utility in the country, the creativity of its people, how can you not bet on LA? So I've been convinced you already. You know, let me tell you about our universities. We've got 3 out of, we're the only city in the country with 3 top 25 universities, the only city in the world with 3 top 100 global universities. We churn out more patents, more engineers than our friends up north. Who we love, and you do a much better job at retaining them. But for us, the challenge now is making sure that those engineers that are here flow into companies that are growing, that the patents that we have stay in Los Angeles instead of going elsewhere. We love California. We love the United States. But as the president said, there is no better time, especially for those of you who are visiting from abroad. The United States is the best country in the world to invest in right now, and I think Los Angeles is the best city in the United States. So when we look at these options and we look at these opportunities, we know, mix that in with, you know, a bad year where we have maybe 350 days of sunshine, our incredible surroundings, our can-do spirit, the ability to surf and ski in the same day. We need you here, and we have the recipe. It's the lifestyle that entrepreneurs flourish in. I was talking recently to the founder of Riot Games, which is moving into the city of Los Angeles, didn't exist 5 years ago. 1,500 employees, might double that in a couple years. And I said, how is it that you're in LA? Because sometimes we'll read, oh, it's a business unfriendly place, or California's taxes are too high, or this, that, and the other. He said, where else could I be? I need programmers from around the world. I need engineers that are coming out of great universities. I need a place where I can retain a workforce because we've got an amazing place to experience. LA is the only city I could be in. And I think increasingly people are looking at that. And the challenges that we've faced, whether they're traffic or pollution, whether they're investing in our infrastructure, Los Angeles is a place on the move. We're not waiting for Washington, D.C. I was inspired by the president last night when he said, if you're a governor or a mayor, don't wait for us, start doing stuff. Because we aren't waiting for Washington. In the past, it might have been Washington would save America's cities. I think it's America's cities that are going to save Washington. I was on the phone with Mayor Bloomberg today and Mayor Nutter of Philadelphia, Kasim Reed in Atlanta, those of us who are looking at how we reinvent transportation. Imagine coming back here to Los Angeles in a few years and we have an app where transportation becomes a commodity instead of a mode, where you can charge your phone with $100 and decide based on what you need to do that day, whether you want a shared bike or a shared car if you need a car to get on the bus or a subway, whether you want to have an autonomous vehicle or an Uber or a taxi pick you up. And suddenly we can re-engineer a city that we have all these empty parking spaces and all this road that never has a car on it at any given moment and figure out a better use to turn those into green spaces and public transit. I often say that Los Angeles government, city government, has the best monopoly, has the widest market share on people, but the crappiest products. You have great products and you need more market share. So let's make a deal together that if you have something and you want to test it, come to us, come to me in city government and say, I want to test a parking app. Like when I was a council member in Hollywood with Streetline, we had the first real-time parking app that told you not just an estimation of where parking was, but with real-time sensors and a mesh network in Hollywood. When we learned that 30% of the traffic in that area was caused by people looking for a place to park, well, now you know exactly where to find that parking space in real time. Before we had that, 6 years ago, people told me we needed to deal with parking in Hollywood, so I started building a parking structure, which is the old analog way of doing this, and it only took me 5 years and only cost us $40 million. Well, for $40,000, we had that app that probably made as big a dent as that bricks and mortar project as well. So use us as a platform. Test us for your ideas, for your stories, for your products. And the models that we're talking about here today, models of bringing people together and incubating and accelerating, have been shown, we know, to make a real impact. Research shows 87% of startups that work with business incubators are still in business 3 years later, versus just half of startups that did not have that interaction with an incubator. And 65% of incubator-assisted startups receive crucial third-party funding compared to just 10% of companies that don't have that relationship. So we can only imagine the direct impact of gathering together and bringing all sides here, all the pieces of the startup ecosystem face-to-face in one place. And let's cut to the chase. This conference is about bringing together leading entrepreneurs that are creating content and launching new ventures. So we've seen the power of this community when it works. According to Built LA's startup report, a total of $1 billion was raised here last year for the first time in 2013, a bump up from 2012, where we're at 871, and I want to see that continue to accelerate. 25 digital companies that were acquired in 2013 generated over $1.1 billion. Over 100 companies raised $1 million or more in capital last year, and these companies represent all digital sectors, including 47 software companies that made a big local impact with $304 million raised in total. These numbers are important. And we know that traditional VC is important, but traditional VC is no longer the only way. And with the prevalence of crowdfunding, companies like Kickstarter and Indiegogo are changing the paradigm. I mean, crowdfunding just funded the Jamaican bobsled team to go to Sochi, for God's sake. We can do things we never thought possible. One of my goals as mayor is to help to bring more capital to LA. So if you're here with capital, come, stay, grow. Think about setting up an office here. It's nice to have you visit, but we'd like to have you actually live here or hire somebody who can live here, to get large firms to stay here. We've got a lot of people with capital who have their home here in Malibu or someplace in LA, but their company is still outside the city. We want you to be here in LA. We know that more money means more exits translates to more opportunity means more jobs. And it's an exciting city to do it in. It's not just happening in West Los Angeles. At the Martin Luther King Day Parade, I was the Grand Marshal last Monday, and I marched alongside with students that were from two of our South LA high schools here in the heart of Los Angeles, with their two computer science teachers, who last summer with them helped them build 34 apps 10 students built 34 apps. They were honored by the White House, and we're looking at something called Silicon South that would, in South LA, create a completely new paradigm for those kids through STEM education and computer programming. In East LA, Will.i.am, who grew up in Boyle Heights, has an incredible initiative in technology that's getting together with a number of folks from around the country to fund college graduation, but also things like 3D printers in each one of our high schools there, so that folks can see the revolution that's happening in manufacturing. And here in Los Angeles, which is the manufacturing capital of the United States, we can keep up with making sure we compete and continue to export that brilliance. And just like the rest of our city's economy, just like LA, our tech ecosystem, Silicon Beach, the heartland of what we've seen here, is incredibly diverse. From the beach to the mountains, there are products and new businesses established daily that are innovating our traditional economic heritage industries like fashion, like design, like entertainment, like clean tech and manufacturing. In Hollywood, we see companies popping up like Revolt TV and BuzzFeed, capitalizing on the convergence of tech and entertainment and media. In downtown, companies like Nasty Gal and Oblong are repping local sectors like finance and fashion. And downtown LA, which GQ magazine just called the best neighborhood in America, which is probably the beginning of the end, but let's enjoy it while it's there. And the New York Times said of the 50 must-visit places in the world, it was number 3. It's also home to a burgeoning clean tech sector where we can't find enough real estate for the green tech startups and clean tech startups that are there. We are also in a city that has had an incredible past that we are building on. And I really do want to return to that heritage. This is a great sports town. This is a great entertainment town. This is a great music town. This is a great aerospace town. We have the weather for making and continuing to make this a great clean tech town, and it's a great biotech town. It's a financial services capital, and we forget to talk about that too, with a number of funds that are already here, traditional funds, but we want to have some more venture funds that are here too. And as I've said before, the big part of my job as mayor is to be the chief marketing officer for the city, a mouthpiece for the innovation, the creativity that happens. If I had to sum up LA in one sentence, Los Angeles is where creativity lives. So come, taste that creativity, breathe it in, fund it, expand it. You'll make some money, you'll change the world, and you'll find what that good life means that Aristotle talked about. The role for a politician like me is to remind people that the Greek word for politics and city come from the same root, polis. Sometimes we turn on Fox or MSNBC or CNN, whatever your preference, and all we see is people shouting at each other. All we see is people telling you what they're against or who's doing something wrong. But I believe it's in the city that politics came together in the beginning in a democracy for people to figure out how meeting each other, that accidental table that you're sat at today, talking to somebody you never knew, that collision of human beings can result in something that will change not only your destiny, but the destiny of humanity itself. That is what Los Angeles is about, and we intend to continue that going forward. I encourage you to stay in touch with me. We'll be announcing our city's first Chief Innovation Technology Officer soon, somebody from the industry that I think you'll be very impressed with. And we're going to be focusing on cutting red tape, making it easier to be an entrepreneur here, reducing our city's business tax, and making this a business-friendly place once again. We're going to leverage our educational policies to get you the workforce that you need, and we might even be able to give you assistance if you hire local kids. This summer, we're going to hire 10,000 youth in some of our toughest neighborhoods and give them digital badges while they learn new skills of entrepreneurialism, of coding, of all sorts of things that will prepare them for the economy of the future. And I look forward to working with all of you in places like the Promise Zone that was just designated by President Obama, one of the first 3 cities in America to get that, a place where we'll layer technology and transportation and education and public safety and all sorts of dollars together to show the rebirth of America's cities in its heartland. With all these things in play, it's clear that we have a great future. Here, if you're from here in your home, or if you're not, again, from your second home. Here where creativity lives. I look forward to changing this city and changing the world together. Let's do it. Thanks so much.